I had two things that I really focused on: governing the country and survival. Because from the moment I won, before I got to office, all of a sudden, they came down. I mean, nobody has ever been treated that way. And you see that. I mean, you see where in the Washington Post very early on, they said, well, now the impeachment stuff starts. And it did. I mean, it literally started from the beginning.
Hey, everybody. This is Troy over at Uncomfortable Truths. Thanks for checking me out. Now, we have to talk about the big interview where Donald Trump sat with Joe Rogan for 3 hours and went over a whole range of policies. Now, this is super interesting because Kamala Harris was supposedly talking to Joe Rogan about going on to his podcast, but of course, she ducked out of it, whereas Donald Trump has no problem whatsoever going on and talking about his policies for 3 hours. So one of the things that I found extremely interesting on this podcast is Donald Trump addressed what I think was the biggest mistake of his first presidency, and that is that he didn't put the right people into office. Take a look.
And how did you know who to appoint?
Well, I didn't. I had no experience. You have to understand, Joe.
So
I was there 17 times in Washington, and I never stayed over. According to the press, which I think is probably right, over the years, I was only there 17 times. I never stayed over.
So yes, there were definitely horrible appointments made by Donald Trump. First and foremost in my mind is John Bolton, who is one of the architects of the Iraq War. And this guy literally just wants to drag America into every single conflict that he can even think up. So I think putting that guy in his administration was a horrible move for Trump. However, you do have to remember that before Donald Trump came into politics, he didn't even know who many of these people actually were, and he was relying on establishment Republicans to actually give him good advice on how to implement his policies. Now, unfortunately, establishment Republicans were going against Donald Trump's wants and wishes for much of his presidency. And I do think that a second Trump presidency, we are going to see much, much less of that, because I think Donald Trump has learned from his mistakes.
In terms of me, and sometimes I'd use it as an excuse, and I don't like having excuses actually, but I'd use it as an excuse. I had to rely on people that I respected or liked, but that I didn't know that well because I didn't know them that well. Some of those people I campaigned against because, when you have 18 people, we had mostly politicians running in the election, running in the primaries. And they got knocked out one by one, but I got to like some of them. Some of them I didn't like at all, and I don't like them now. And I'd rely on them, and I'd rely on other people.
All right, so you heard it from Trump himself. A lot of the people that he picked, he was relying on information given to him by establishment Republicans. Now, unfortunately, a lot of establishment Republicans, especially at the time, they were warmongers. Think Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, John Bolton. All of these people are absolutely horrible, and now they seem to feel more at home in the Democratic Party than the Republican Party, which kind of tells you everything that you need to know, because as Trump pulled the Republican Party to be more peaceful and to say, hey, we should actually stay out of some of these conflicts, we should just put America first and let other countries do whatever it is they're going to do, but we're only going to focus on America's interests. Well, a lot of Republicans didn't like that, and so they were basically fighting against Trump while he was trying to make us more peaceful and just focus on American prosperity instead of going all over the world to implement our preferred policies overseas, just like the way neocons want to do it. Unfortunately for the neocons, that isn't really working in the Republican Party anymore, which is why, honestly, they're fleeing. And I'm happy to see them gone, and I'm happy to see that they've joined the Democratic Party, because that's where they belong. Now that we're seeing that we have Kamala Harris and Joe Biden before her, and really most of the Democratic Party going out there and doing apologetics for other countries and making sure that we continue to fund their wars. This wouldn't happen under Donald Trump going forward because he's seen what happens when you don't appoint the right people in the past. But this isn't always an easy decision to make because you never know for sure what people are going to actually do once they're in office. So this presented a problem for Trump.
But it's very dangerous to pick somebody outside of a politician because a politician's been basically vetted for years.
Right.
You pick a business guy and they've never been vetted at all, and they're, the head of a big company or something, but they've never been vetted. You know nothing about his personal life. You know nothing about where he's been. When you put him in, it's a little bit dangerous because all of a sudden they get checked up and you hear things that you're saying, wow, this is not going to work out too well. So it's very dangerous. Picking people that are outside of politics is somewhat dangerous.
So you're kind of stuck in a position where you have to pick established people. And then the problem with established people is established people are already indoctrinated into the system.
The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah, neocons or bad people or disloyal people or
people that were just
people
bad.
That were into the
people
you got
bad advice.
Yeah, you're reading about them a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person. You know more about bullies than anybody probably around because you deal in a certain sport.
All right, so on this one, I kind of see where Trump's coming from, but I disagree with his point. Because one of the main problems that we have is these establishment figures that have decades and decades of experience. Sure, they do understand how the system works. They are able to implement their preferred policies. But the reason why they've been in these positions for decades is because they want to continue doing what the deep state wants and what the establishment wants. And honestly, that isn't in the best interest of the American people. That's why we get into these forever wars. And it's also why these people are so hell-bent on stopping Donald Trump from being elected again. Because yes, you do take a risk when you have somebody that does not have decades of government experience taking high offices. But the trade-off is that when the country is going in a poor direction, you also now have an ability to hold these people accountable and change directions. This is why you have Republicans like Mitch McConnell and all of these never Trump Republicans so strongly against Trump, is because they like the neocon policies. And the Democrats, who want to go to war with everybody, they also like these overseas policies and they like the establishment appointments. Well, since they aren't sure what Donald Trump's going to do, for example, he's talking about appointing business leaders like Elon Musk, they say, no, we don't want to have any part of this guy. And honestly, I think Donald Trump should continue to appoint people that maybe previously he wouldn't have considered, such as Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, and RFK. I think that's a great move. And honestly, I'm really liking to see this realignment because if the Democrats want Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and John Bolton, you know what? You can have them because I don't want to be in a party where they feel welcome. And Trump chasing these people off is one of the greatest things that he's done for the Republican Party. So let me know what you think. Do me a favor and hit like and subscribe and share these uncomfortable truths with folks. Take care, everybody.